Hello and welcome to the 9th installment of 5 on It News. My name is Edwin Leskin from Asheville, North Carolina, and this is a daily or almost daily news blog that is meant to take the most globally riveting and impacting stories, give them over to you in an easy to understand and condensed manner. Things have been going well. We didn't have a show yesterday. There wasn't too much going on, luckily. Yesterday plus some of the bigger stories from today make a really full, well-rounded show. So today I'm not going to get too deep in on a lot of things that I would like to talk about. I mean, little notifications about bombings in Nigeria or certain kinds of hostage situations perpetrated by ISIS. These kinds of things are good news, and I want you to stay up on them. But at the same time, I don't quite have the time to go into all that stuff all the time, and I don't think it's quite broad scope enough for us to really focus on. Once again, my rubric for considering stories to report on the show are: do they directly impact you or the lives of all Americans? Do the stories have some sort of global import and affect the geopolitical spectrum of the way that the world works in some ways? Or does this signify a really foundational change in a singular nation? So the way the show opens up is I do quick mention where I go through and just meld and mush and just spit out as many cool little stories that I found that weren't necessarily huge stories, but that I want you to know about. And so we're going to start off with a quick mention, and then in the end we'll have our big story for today that we'll go into, which I'm sure a lot of you are already aware of, but we'll give a little download on it anyway. So without further ado, let's get to it. 5 on It News. Let's go. So the first thing that I want to talk about today was just some speculation we've been talking about Boko Haram. Boko Haram is an Islamic militant group that has undergone massive operations in Nigeria over the past year, and there's a kind of African coalition coming together to fight it, but they're raising hell out there. So Boko Haram is kind of easing up and kind of getting a little bit more sweet with ISIS. So there was a tweet on February 9th where Boko Haram basically said, hey, we are considering potentially becoming a branch of ISIS. As we talked about a couple of videos ago, there's really not much that goes on if you want to become a branch of ISIS. You kind of just say, hey, yeah, we pledge our allegiance to Abu Bakr, and boom, there you go. You're part of ISIS now. So I just wanted to follow up on that because, I think that would be a really strong kind of ideological bolstering for Boko Haram if they were to join with ISIS. They're kind of on the run right now. They have been beaten back to an extent by this kind of coalition and all these airstrikes that are going on. They don't really have a way to respond to that kind of military power or prowess. So we will see how this goes. I'm going to stay up on Boko Haram, stay up on ISIS. Those are definitely the two major conflicts going on in the world outside of Europe. And also, Boko Haram is continuing to perpetrate things like suicide bombings. There was one today that I believe killed 19 people. So moving on now, I just want to note that Amnesty International has said that the world's response to ISIS has been straight up shameful and ineffective. And I have to agree, unfortunately, a little bit of personal bias, personal opinion coming in here. I really think there should be a stronger response from nations around the world. This could be an amazing coming together of militaries and nations to just stomp out this threat. It continues to grow. And our estimations these days that there are, only 30 or 40,000 ISIS members when they have control of lands that hold 6 million people in them. And I think that's just in Iraq. I think that they're way underdoing it. I think they're training young men right now, and this fighting force is going to rise and rise and rise. Once it hits the 100,000, 200,000 range in a couple of years, if we don't take care of this problem, it could be absolutely devastating. Okay, so let's move on. We're going to talk about Ukraine. We're talking about that conflict. As you remember, there was a ceasefire that was supposed to happen last week, I believe last Sunday. Or 2 Sundays ago, that ceasefire fell through almost immediately. There was immediately fighting right after the ceasefire was going to happen. Well, it looks like they're going to try to salvage the ceasefire, and Ukraine is making the first step. Ukraine is deciding to pull back their heavy weapons. So we'll see if this really puts into effect the ceasefire that was supposed to happen. I think that maybe the separatists or the rebels are just going to say, hey, this is a bit of a victory for us and really not stop their onslaught. But we will see. I will stay up on that. Also, some news. Somebody hit me up and mentioned, why didn't I mention this? A couple days ago, Putin said that war with Ukraine was unlikely. But he also mentioned that was an apocalyptic scenario. Strong words from a strong, sometimes seemingly delusional leader of state. So let's move on. I want to talk about a funny story to me. It's not funny, but at the same time, I think it's slightly hilarious. So Iran destroyed a mock U.S. aircraft carrier in naval drills. They, just set up like a big thing in the water, looked like a U.S. aircraft carrier, and then blew it up. So, Iran, oh my God, you can destroy an aircraft carrier. It's just silly stuff. I just wanted to report on that one because I think it's funny. Okay, so moving on. Let's talk about Greece for a minute. So Greece did come to an agreement with the IMF and with the Eurozone basically getting an extension of 4 months on the money that they owe, and reestablishing them or continuing to keep them in the Eurozone. Well, Greece is saying that they're going to have some problems repaying this money, and basically Germany is looking over at them like, yeah, exactly, we told you so. We told you so, Greece. So I'm going to stay up on this. I think it's very, very interesting. We'll see how the next couple months play out. Greece, for a minute, it looks like they weren't going to get their funding, and they might have pulled out of the Eurozone, which would have been absolutely devastating for the nation. But they did it, and they came together. But now, immediately, right after they get their extension, they say, hey, we might not be able to pay this back. Thanks for the extension, but we might not be able to pay this back. So we'll see how that goes. I just, kind of the footing around of Greece and the situation has been very interesting. So let's go ahead and talk. We're going to talk for a minute about China and about technology. So China has taken some of the world's leading technological brands off of its approved purchase list. Now, in China, as you know, technology is very heavily monitored. For instance, a prime instance of this would be in the video game industry in China. So let's say that you have a video game where people play all over the world on shared servers. Well, if you want to have a video game in China, it has to be closed server. You absolutely cannot have people from China interacting with other people from across the world. So that's just one little example of the way that they do things. They keep things insulated, and they do allow more freedoms than they ever have in the past, but at the same time, they want to, parse out those freedoms very strategically for what their overall goals are. So, they're taking off basically in the wake of realization of how extensive our cyber surveillance is, kind of the overarching power to, to data mine and to, commit espionage that the NSA has. And surveillance, they've said, hey, we're taking a lot of these American products, we're taking them off the market. So, I don't have quite a direct readout of what those products are. I think there's some very popular products. I don't know if they took the iPhone out. That would be pretty huge. But I will try to stay up on that. I think that when China does something like this with freedoms or technology, it's always very interesting to me. So this was the big news yesterday, and it wasn't that big news to me necessarily. It was the big headline because it implies a threat, and it's very sensational. And it sounds like a movie, and it's a little scary. But basically, we charged three American men who were conspiring to support the Islamic State. One of them was coming out on Twitter talking about, hey, I want to be a martyr, but would killing Obama be enough to be a martyr? I would just get shot then, or should we go over to Syria and help stuff? These are young men. They're 19, 24, and 30. And they all lived in Brooklyn, and they all had, some ties that were developed towards ISIS, and they wanted to go to Syria to wage war on ISIS's behalf, or to just shoot Obama. So we arrested them. I think that's interesting as we see more. I think I was saying the other day that it was Britain has had 5,000, or Australia said 5,000, some country, 5,000 people go and fight for ISIS. So this is definitely something to monitor. These people could go there and come back and end up having, some very scary training. So I will try to stay up on that. Okay, so those are the major kind of, or the minor stories for today. My little quick mentions where I just go through and try to knock a bunch of stories out. And one thing that I've been doing is going through and doing a little just recap on what I just talked about when I'm done talking about the quick mentions so they can stay in your mind. So I'm just going to do that real quick. First, we talked about Boko Haram saying, hey, maybe we'll join ISIS. Scary stuff. We also talked a little bit about how Boko Haram is kind of on the run from the Nigerian military, Chad and Cameroon all coming together to fight them. And then we talked about Amnesty International has said that the world response to ISIS has been shameful. Then we talked about Ukraine actually trying to put in effect the ceasefire that was supposed to happen over a week ago by pulling back their heavy weapons. After that, we talked about Putin saying that war with Ukraine was unlikely, but that it would be apocalyptic if it happened. And then we talked about my little fun story for the day. Funny to me for some reason. Iran destroying a mock U.S. Aircraft carrier in these naval drills. We talked then about Greece trying to pay back the IMF over a 4-month period, and right after they made this deal, basically saying, hey, thanks for the deal, thanks for the extension. Probably won't be able to do that, though. Interesting. We then talked about China dropping a lot of leading technologies that are U.S. made over fear of cybersecurity concerns from their approved purchases list. Finally, we talked about 3 young men in between the ages of 19 and 30 being charged to conspire with the Islamic State. They were going to shoot Obama, or they were going to do something like go over to Syria and fight, and we arrested them. So the last thing I want to talk about today, this is the big story for today, and, there's a lot of opinions on this one. I think overall it's generally a good thing, my personal bias, but the FCC has adopted internet rules that protect net neutrality. I'm sure a lot of you are informed about this policy, but basically what this does is these new rules protect a company like Comcast or a company like AT&T from saying, okay, so here we have somebody surfing the web, and we have all these websites. So let's say that website A is this very well-established website. Website B is a not very well-established website. Well, website A can pay more to have their stuff stream faster on your computer, and website B gets left in the dust, or actually has their kind of capability for how quick it comes in decline. So this kind of protected against that, and it said no, everything has to have kind of an equal footing. And this also protects it so that maybe home users have really slow internet, and a gigantic business or a very wealthy person can pay for the super souped up internet that will work way faster. And so this has been a raging battle. I mean, on major websites, pretty much every single major website. I think Amazon, Imgur, Reddit, all these websites have come together and said, support net neutrality. There's been some very notable personalities in the news industry as well that have come out in support of it. So this passed 3-2, and the FCC is going to go ahead and do this. This is an interesting story for a couple different reasons. One thing that I want to mention, which I think is an excellent point, is that this is kind of a blunt instrument, as it's being said. It's kind of just nothing, you can't do anything. You can't alter any of these things. At the same time, though, the way that these companies set up their internet is like this. YouTube needs to stream faster than Gmail. Gmail is actually optimized to be able to stream in any country, in a lot of countries with very poor internet, so that they can get to it quickly, or it can be used in emergency situations. But YouTube, because of the volume of data that's coming through, needs to stream quicker than Gmail does. So it should have some priority. So, this kind of, it's not necessarily applicable to reality. A lot of times we see laws that are, sound good overall, but they're not applicable to the reality of the way that things are going to happen. Now, the other thing is that there's probably going to be some serious legal battles. AT&T is probably going to, fight it, as the speculation is. There's probably going to be a good bit of fighting of it. And then there's also the mention that over time, regulation will probably ratchet up. So, over time, these companies probably will start to figure out ways to do this, and then we'll have to have new, more specific, more streamlined, and real regulation to stop this from happening. But a lot of people are touting this as, an amazing, success for the internet. We have freedom across the internet. And then, of course, some of the more conservative pundits in the nation are saying, well, we just broke the internet by having too much government bureaucracy in it. I think either of those stances is probably reductive. And the truth is that I've read a bunch of different articles, and the most intelligent pundits that I could find were saying, look, nothing's going to change. You're not going to notice a change. This is just all hypotheticals. This is kind of a phantom, monster out there that's not necessarily, threatening too much. So I don't think much is going to change for the day-to-day internet goer, but luckily not much will change for the day-to-day internet goer if this kind of stuff did happen. But this did pass. Net neutrality is a go. I know there's a lot of happy people out there about this, and there's a lot of people that are raising a lot of very important questions. So maybe I'll do some follow-up on this in the future, and we'll figure it out. Okay, so that's kind of the show for today, and I hope you enjoyed everything. I am kind of mining for some longer-term reporting on some of the stories that we've been following. So every single day, little news will trickle in. Like we talked a lot about Yemen when a bunch of big stuff was happening. Every couple days, news will trickle in. Well, on any single day, the news by itself might not be enough for me to want to give over to you. But if I pay attention to a region or to a country or to a story over time, over the course of a week or two, it could culminate into something that's really good to talk about. So I'm going to try to stay up on that a little bit more so that we can kind of have repeat follow-up of these different nations. I don't want the show to become okay, now we check in on country A. Now we check in on country B. I want it to be topical, and I weed out a tremendous amount of the news that I actually read personally for my own information a day to just bring you the stuff that's either really interesting or funny to me, or that I think has some major effect or indicates something very interesting. So I'm just going to give you one instance as a little short segment, at the end of today of why I wouldn't choose a story. So a couple days ago we talked about these Israeli intelligence cables that got leaked, and Netanyahu basically coming out looking like a butt about it. So then today there's, articles pretty much every major news website talking about how, Netanyahu's going to come to the United States and he's going to talk very soon. I think it's this weekend or something. And there's all these problems with Netanyahu. Now that story in itself, it's good news. It's good news that I suggest that you check it out. But for the purposes of this show, this is not actually something happening. When Netanyahu does come and talk, the Prime Minister of Israel does come and talk, then I'll cover it, because then it will be interesting. And if he gets there and he doesn't really say anything interesting or nothing surprising, I might not cover it. Okay? So that's a little bit of insight into what I consider viable for this for 5 on It News. I hope that you enjoyed today's show. We kept it under 15 minutes. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic! What a success! But I hope you're having a fantastic day. We're getting a good amount of views on the videos. I think taking a couple days off kind of hurt things, but that's okay. Just keep it on trucking, and I'll be doing a lot of promotion on this soon. So I hope you like it. Please give me your feedback, and we'll craft this thing together. Like, share, favorite, subscribe. Go to the Facebook page. Check that out. Do all those kinds of things. Once again, this is Edwin Letskin from Asheville, North Carolina. 9th installment, I believe. Hope it's not 8th. I'm saying that wrong. I think 9th installment of 5 on It News. And I hope that you have a fantastic day.